no one will ever beat New York for fine dining. No one. Like, just the business accounts, the culture, we just don't have that. And I don't think we want that. Like, the food in LA never got better. It's just that the things that we do really well, ethnic, pop-up, casual, just became the way America eats.
All right, we're back at the cheese store. This is the industry-only podcast at the cheese store. Industry-only at the cheese store.
Industry-only at the cheese store.
Getting used to this name.
In the cheese store basement.
All right, well, I'm looking at this iced tea, but we've got to talk about our guests because we've got the esteemed Caryl Chinn here. Caryl has been running the biggest food festivals without exaggeration, I mean, in America. At this point for decades, she worked for Bon Appetit. Mm-hmm. She was a very crucial part of the New York City Wine and Food Festival. Pebble Beach, Los Angeles. She's working on Pizza City Fest now. But what we really want to talk to Caryl about is all the private things that nobody's ever been able, all the shit that you don't get invited to, Dom.
Yeah.
We keep talking about.
Looking forward to it.
We'll be invited now.
I wish I could triple fist because we have our Big Noise lager from our friends and sponsors. We have this Lambrusco that Dom always pours because I mentioned once that I liked Lambrusco. I'd never seen this Cura iced tea, and I mean this potentially could be very, very life-changing because Honest Tea got discontinued. Fuck off, Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. Why are you keeping all this oversweet tea?
I gotta tell you, not only a really great friend of mine and my mentor Mario Del Perro. There's a nice little plug for Mario.
Yeah, Mendocino Farms.
Mendocino Farms. So basically, Mario introduced me, and I'm gonna blank on his name right now, but it'll come to me. But he literally came yesterday. I'm like, dude, like we want to try your iced tea. He came yesterday. We're like, we'll take it, and he happened to have great entrepreneur. A bunch of cases in his trunk, and we bought it, and it is exceptional iced tea. They have a few different flavors. They have mango. They have, what is it?
Yeah, literally, I did not know this. Like, this is not a product placement. Like, 5 minutes ago, I did not know this existed. I've been going to Erewhon
Andy needs to know everything going on at all times.
What about iced tea?
And that's a win for me.
So there's a brand called Just Iced Tea started by the Honest people. I think Spike Mendelson helped them a little bit. Uh-huh. That one's good.
This one's exceptional.
All right, welcome to the Iced Tea podcast at the cheese store. I don't know what the fuck we're even talking about at this point.
All right, so Caryl, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for putting out this gorgeous spread.
Are you kidding me? This is amazing. Thank you again. We're very happy to have you. Yes, so we are in the basement of the cheese store. We have a lot of different noises and doors opening and things like that. But here we are. So first and foremost, welcome. And thank you for making the time to be here.
Honestly, you guys call, I come, there's cheese on the table.
Yeah, I mean, like, look at this. I mean, this is a Lazy Susan.
I didn't even know we had a Lazy Susan. Where did that come from?
For Chinese Day, you get a Lazy Susan.
Exactly.
So, this is industry only. So we want to talk about some industry stuff. We know about the public stuff that Caryl does. But, like, I've been at your house, fortunately for me, at many dinner parties that Dom hasn't been invited to. They've been really, really great.
I didn't even know you had a house.
Yeah. It was like a formative bonding experience. There's, like, one where we had with Leeway. There's one where we did Italian-American food with Lawrence Longo and Jordan Oken. And
the first one was Red Sauce Italian Night.
How do I not get invited to Red Sauce Italian Night? Can someone explain that to me?
But we were bemoaning the lack of like a good red sauce joint in LA, having both just relocated here from New York City. And so we're like, well, where do you go for that? We don't know. And so like we should just do one. Like we could probably just like make a better potluck than that. So that was the
and
the
then
first.
We did Chinese food, and then Leeway came, Shirley Chung came. Daniel Holzman, our friend from the meatball shop who now has Danny Boys, that great pizza downtown. He went to Ranch 99, bought all these ingredients, and said he's like destroyed his kitchen, like wok frying like double cooked pork, but his shit was good.
All the Chinese chefs legit said that's the most Chinese dish here and the best.
Right.
Wow.
Perry Chung was like rolling dumplings. Essentially like rolling dumplings on site. That's what he was doing. But I want to even go back further than that because when you go to Caryl's house, you start seeing some crazy shit. And you see these photos, and she has this one photo that, pound for pound, it's probably the most OG photo of New York chefs you'll like ever see in your life. So tell me about that photo and tell me what that was from because it's crazy.
Yeah, so at the time, I was living in the meatpacking district in this like crazy loft on 14th Street. For people like you who know, it was upstairs of Double Seven. And
Right. This is like New York City, like true like restaurant nightlife
probably
history we're about
like
to get into.
2001, 2000.
Right. This is
And-
the legendary like David Rabin
Yeah.
cocktail lounges, the guys who started Lotus, etc.
Yeah. It was Todd's birthday, and he'd never really had a big 40th birthday, so we decided to do a 41st birthday. And so Todd English from Olive's restaurant.
Right.
Wow.
And so we decided to do a big birthday party. Olive's, we had basically Olive's did the catering, so they dropped off all the food, and then we just kind of made this gorgeous buffet out of it, and then invited all of our chef friends. And so, yeah, your memory is correct. It's Danielle Boulud was there, Bobby Flay, Marcus Samuelson. I'm trying to remember, like, so all of Todd's chefs were there. Patricia Yo was there.
Yeah, that's super OG too.
Yeah, and I feel like Paul Liebrandt was there. I'd have to look at the photos.
Right, he was
to-
well compared to them, he would have been a child at the time almost,
and
right?
that's like Patricia. He was talking to Patricia, who's also kind of got that British Singaporean thing accent, and she was just like, he just wants his mum. But yeah. So, anyways, and then Tom Colicchio said, "Listen, I want to come, but we had just opened Craft." So I gotta at least get through the first turn, and then I'll come over after. So he shows up maybe 10:30. But there's still all this food, and I'm like, yeah, help yourself, make a plate, whatever. And so he starts going through, and what we had was porchetta and salads and pastas and stuff. And he takes some of the focaccia, cuts it, starts, thinly slicing porchetta, adds some greens from the salad, starts like making the sandwich. And Danielle's like sees him in the kitchen and is like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm making a sandwich. And Danielle's like, ooh, make me one. And so then Bobby Flay wanders like, you making a sandwich? I want one. So Tom starts making sandwiches for everybody at this party. Because like they all ate at 7, so they were ready for second dinner at
Right,
10:30.
and Caryl owns 0% of the IP of Witchcraft because Tom Colicchio like just kept that all for himself, even though he R&D'd it at her house. in real
No,
life.
he had always like, I guess he really liked sandwiches, so we saw it in action.
No,
But it was great.
so that was actually like, look, that party I get is special, but it was pretty typical for Caryl to always be surrounded by people like this. Carol's one of the reasons I moved to Los Angeles. She was like first wave of this migration from New York to LA. I stayed at her house a few times when we were thinking about moving here and all that. So she's a big part of like a lot of people.
Give us a time frame for that and like have
Yeah,
that
When
all-
did I moved in 2011?
Yes, and I moved, I think, 2014. So yeah, that seems right.
Yeah, right before the twins.
Yeah. So the thing about this too is that, of course, in LA, Carol's just a different version of herself, and then she would send me texts and be like, "Hey, my friend Barbara, this is Barbara who runs Wolfgang Puck Catering, has a tin of caviar." I think it wasn't even more than that. She's just like, "Barbara's all this caviar. Come over, we're chowing down." And for Carol, this is just a casual potluck. And you can imagine Wolfgang Puck Catering. We have the stash of caviar. We're just bringing up. She's had these, and Jet Tila's come. Carol's very tight with Giada. Giada's come. But again, like this isn't some organized thing. These are just Carol's friends, right?
It's just like a potluck on steroids.
Right. So
Like Adam Perry Lang made the buckwheat blini for the caviar that time.
Yeah. So this is what's so wild about it. So she's just been doing this. And so Liwei Liao, who is, a lot of people know, gets some credit for helping me start Industry Only because he wanted to throw an after party. He's like, no, Andy, this stuff really started at Carol's house because tell us about what you remember about the day where we all did Chinese food at your house.
So these crazy epic potlucks we do. We decided to do Chinese food, and so Shirley Chung came. Perry Chung was also there, and Liwei was like, "I'll do a whole fish." And so he's on my home stove with 2 burners, trying to get like this hotel pan with a whole fish in it and do it properly, with another hotel pan on top to steam it. And he's trying to cook it. And he's like, we could do this at my store. Like, we're closed at night times or whatever. It was like, so, now that we've kind of outgrown
And he said
your
this is a
kitchen.
joke, not seriously, but in a way it was serious.
In a way, it was serious. Yeah.
But Liwei also, he bought all this peas and Barnett pork, and he just made Taiwanese slow-cooked pork over rice, too, with tea eggs and everything. And I made mapo tofu and
Over tater tots.
And Shirley Chung brought tater tots. So I guess that was a collaboration. She had frozen tater tots on mapo tofu.
Jordan Oken took the sesame bagels and hollowed them out and made shrimp toast paste and then fried those which I have to say were really
I thought
good.
we were going to tell you that only Asian people got invited, so that's why you weren't invited, but we just told
it's
them
like
that Jordan
Wilo.
got
Jordan was
invited.
there.
Oh.
I should have been invited.
Oh, Daniel Holtzman was there too? Yeah, we just... Oh, fuck, Dom.
I keep getting left out of these things. My feelings are hurt.
But it was really the beginning of this whole thing, right? Where we have industry only now, as our friends have been talking about. We've done a party in New York City at ZZ's. We're doing parties in Las Vegas during World's 50 Best. Leeway and our friend Heather Wong and all that, they're going to be at the Revelry Festival put together by Win. Alongside some people named Dominic Grennan, Daniel Hum, and
It's amazing.
J.P. Park. But the reality is like for Caryl, this is no big deal because decades ago, Todd English and Flay and Bullet. So she thinks this shit is boring by now, probably.
No,
That
no,
to
I
me,
think-
that's actually a great segue. So I want to really learn, like, first of all, how did you get started in this? And why did you come to LA when New York is such a vibrant food scene? Like, how did this whole thing start?
Well, so for me, I have a degree in history. I'd never worked in a restaurant, but I graduated and I was living in Berkeley, San Francisco, great food area. And I just became very enamored with the idea of restaurants and bars. Friends were opening clubs and it just seemed like such a fun lifestyle. So I knew I didn't want to become a chef or cook, but I loved like that whole hospitality industry. So I got a resume together and I applied at a bunch of different restaurants in San Francisco, and I got hired by Star's Restaurant. So Chef Jeremiah Tower, that was my first restaurant job in the office. I should say, I guess I was a hostess technically for 2 months, and then he fired his assistant, and they were like, well, you're smart, you should just go work in the office. And I'm like, he just fired the last girl. And they're like, he likes you, you'll be fine. So I started as JT's assistant. I did that for 3 years. And even though I wasn't a chef, like it was getting him prepped for the James Beard, awards, or getting him prepped for a TV appearance. And it was like learning about PR and events, kind of hands-on like that. And just learning how to edit a recipe. And I was like, Chef, I don't cook. I shouldn't. He's like, if you don't understand what I wrote, that's like a great way for me to know I need to give more detail.
Wow.
So he kind of taught me the Time Life recipe way that he and Richard Olney wrote those books. So I learned how to edit recipes, and that was really where I got my start.
Right, and Jeremiah Tower, because we're talking about how this is an industry podcast. Obviously, like for the three of us, it's like, wow, that guy's an icon, that's a legend. But the equivalent would just be like, oh, I happened to get a job working for this filmmaker. Oh, who was that? It's like Scorsese, right? It's just like, because so many things were born out of the fact of the existence of Jeremiah Tower, right?
Yeah, Chez Panisse.
Yeah. So your first gig was somebody of this stature. What happened then?
So then, while I was working with him, we did some events with Bon Appetit magazine. So one in Chicago, one in San Francisco, and so I met that team, and I kind of got the bug to do more. And I decided I either need to move to New York and kind of go for it, or maybe LA. But New York seemed like pulling me.
Sure.
So I reached out to the guys at Bon Appetit and was like, look, I don't write and I don't want to sell advertising, but I loved all the events we did. And they were like, we were thinking about creating a job called special events brand manager. Would you be?
way.
I was like, I think I
She
was
just
25.
manifested a job.
That's freaking amazing.
Yeah.
25, I was like, I will move myself there. I didn't even know to ask for like relocating. I was just like, I'll move myself there.
And that's back when Conde Nast would have basically probably driven a van cross country
With
full
white
of gold
gloves.
bricks.
Exactly.
Wow.
No, so the golden age of publishing. Like we talk about this a lot and reminisce about the good old days. But so I moved to New York. I think my first apartment was in the West Village, was $1,100 a month. When you could make that little money and actually survive in New York City. But so I ended up starting there, and it was just the same time the Food Network started. So chefs are now becoming a thing. So people always knew
they're
a
they're
fancy
like being
restaurant.
celebrated, right? Like chefs before the Food Network, they were just chefs that we all knew.
Or
but
you knew the restaurant, like you knew Le Dome, or
Yeah.
you knew Laurent
Yeah,
Cherie,
yeah,
but you didn't
yeah.
know who was cooking, or you didn't
Wow,
know.
good call.
So now
Yeah.
it's like you start to get like, it's Wolfgang Puck at Spago, it's Jeremiah Tower at Stars.
they
You
start to put a face to the restaurant.
Exactly,
Right.
and they're
Yeah.
coming out of the kitchen and they're doing TV, or they're doing Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, or whatever it is. But yeah, so it's like that time was just kind of the beginning of it all, and I was at the right time and right place. So.
And then, talk about this, because you're still very close with a lot of these chefs from back in the day.
Yeah.
What were sort of the cycles of this, right? Because there's a lot of chefs that had the decision where I can go be TV famous, I can go do products, I can put my head down and cook. And then there's chefs who realize, wait, I can do all of those at the same time. So tell me about some of the festivals that you worked on that sort of made people realize there's different ways where I can reach a mass audience, but I can still be the guy who cooks every day if I want to be that guy.
Yeah. I think what you find a lot of people that can cook, like, that are great chefs, but maybe not great on mediagenic, right? They're not as well spoken or good on TV. You find a lot of people great on TV that can't cook. So the intersection of both, there's not a lot, right? So you start to find like these little superstars, and the festivals. The great thing about Bon Appetit was a national job. I flew to Dallas. I flew to Atlanta. I did events in Miami. It's like being able to be national helped me kind of learn about the food scene as it was happening and growing like that. And the initial events were just kind of like, it was enough to just say it's the Bon Appetit Festival. And we just did these all over the country. And
right. The actual power of the main food magazines, like Gourmet, Bon Appetit, Food and Wine. You think about it now, it's like, yes, they matter, but they don't matter that much. But back then, if you were in the food world, this was like somebody made you a king if they put you in the magazine in the proper way. Yeah.
There was no other reference.
There was no Eater. There was no Instagram. Yeah. Like, you heard about it.
That's a great plug for Eater. Eater, we're looking for sponsorship right now. So if you want to come on board, we're all ears.
Wait, isn't that Jay Penske and Vox Media and all that? You should too now?
Oh, I should probably reach out.
Like one media company.
Yeah, there's like one media company.
Yeah, pretty much.
Actually, you know what?
And they're not our sponsors, so we don't care.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but like back then they weren't themed festivals per se. It was just kind of like, it's Bon Appetit in LA. It's Bon Appetit, whatever.
Right, because the Bon Appetit was such a strong brand. That's all it had to be.
Yeah.
It's true.
And there was no competition, right? It wasn't like now you go to some of these cities, there's 20 food festivals. So you do need one that's pizza, one that's, the burger fest, whatever.
But I also think just to kind of parlay that, I also think that we're becoming more and more specialized in what we do. So you can get that granular on pizza.
True.
Or on burgers.
True.
Or right? So like
that, and the consumer's more savvy. So people now know more
point.
about food. Like back in the day it was like, if these recipes would be like cilantro, or if you can't find it, just use parsley. It's like, it was different back in those days. And now it's like, use this kind of, enjoy it.
Cilantro, from this farm and this,
So you can be highly specialized, or, if you're somebody like our friend Lee Schrager, you realize, the opportunity here is to create something that caters to all of them. If you can get the financial support, the sponsorship support, all the different partnerships, because you go to South Beach Wine and Food like I did for the first time this year, and it's like, okay, you see this Mark Vetcher, Chris Bianco. I understand what that is, because that is sort of, the circle of food that I'm in the most. Over here, Guy Fieri, Robert Irvine. I don't watch your stuff on TV, but I understand how much of a huge, audience they have, right? The Jet Tila event, right? Everybody's coming up and trying to take pictures with them. I'm like, I get it. Some of my friends are super, super TV famous. This other event here, Mauro Colagreco cooking for Massimo Bottura. Now, there's a span there right now, even in 2024. Those three things that I just talked about do not belong in the same place, except they do now, because these things are so mass market that you can hit different people at the same time if you're the right big festival now.
Yeah, no,
and that's crazy to me.
When we did the New York City Wine and Food Festival with Food Network, Lee and I were putting the program together, and I think that's part of the appeal was you had Rachel Ray and Guy Fieri. You had, XYZ restaurant, mom and pop independent chefs from New York City. But then we flew in Ferran Adrià, and him and Jose Andres were talking about, the mentor-protege relationship in a kitchen and what it was like. So I like working with all of those. I think if I only did one, even if it was like only did Massimo Bottura and, Mauro Colagreco, I'd probably be bored. Like, even if it was that level, if I did nothing else, I'd probably be like,
crazy.
I like the mix.
But it's really, really nice that like food has that reach and food has that range now. So what made you want to, besides being the pioneer that you are, what made you want to come to LA after all that success in New York?
For me, it was definitely family. I'm from San Francisco, so wanted to get back to the West Coast. But then there's just that point when maybe for me, it was like when I turned 40, it was just like, I'm living in a 1-bedroom apartment. It's a great 1-bedroom. It's bigger than most and it's nice, but like, I don't know that I want to do this forever. And you just kind of get to that time in your life when you're like, I think it's time to move back and do something else and put down roots.
Right. And this is the broadest question ever, but it's like you and I get asked all the time. It's like, what do you like better? LA restaurants or New York restaurants, or how are they different?
I think you and I are this weird breed of animal. I like both equally. Like, I feel equally at home walking
me
around.
Too.
I was just there last month and I was like walking around with I feel completely at home, walking around, taking the train through Brooklyn. Like, I felt great doing that, but then I feel great here. It's like,
Right.
for me, it was a little bit more of like the time in my life, what was happening. So when I was 25, yeah, I wanted to be in the East Village every night, going out till 4 a.m. Do I want to do that now? No.
Right, but when you're in New York, you don't go to the East Village anymore. You go to the John George restaurant, you go to Carbone or whatever. It's all different now.
So
True.
So actually, this is actually kind of cool because I was actually talking about this the other day. Like, I feel like LA restaurants, from the media perspective, I mean, especially from James Beard, if you believe in any of that shit, like, I feel like they get a bad rap, and I feel like we have a lot of, and this is, by the way, this is a transplant New Yorker coming here for the past 20 years, you know, seeing the accolades that New York restaurants get, which are, by the way, very well deserved. I'm not
Correct.
discrediting one or the other.
Sure.
But I don't feel that LA has gotten its recognition that it truly deserves. I really don't. And by the way, if you believe in all those accolades and all that bullshit, which I clearly don't, but just saying, like, we have the level of talent, the level of
The
ingredient,
ingredients.
okay?
Yeah.
Like, and our execution here,
Yeah.
I feel like we are in the top of America for sure, but I still really feel like LA gets a bad deal.
I think it's changed a lot. I think having people like Andy here shining a light on what's happening.
I'm also here too, don't forget. I'm just kidding.
No, I
I'm
mean,
just
from a media
kidding.
perspective, in
Yeah,
terms
sure.
of giving out accolades
Right,
or
but
awards
you know,
or
but you know,
lists.
like, you know, Michelin, World's 50 Best, all those things, they don't quite. And there's something that I said on another podcast recently, where, like, if you sort of like just start peeling the onion or whatever and start thinking about it, right? You know why certain things are there, but then you realize the things that are not there are not that different from the things that are there. And the example that I'm using, right, is that, like, if Enrique Olvera consistently gets on a World 50 Best list because he does all this avant-garde stuff, but also he's the biggest proponent of heirloom corn, this type of sourcing, you know, making your own tortillas. Why isn't somebody who's doing the same thing for Middle Eastern food, meaning Mike from Zahav or Ori, you know, from Bavel and from Safi's, getting that type of, because it's not that far off, because those guys can cook all the other stuff too. They do plenty of things that are avant-garde, but it just turns out that, like, you know, they make a lot of food with chickpeas and different, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's just so I think it's one of those things where, you know, in the world of World's 50 Best, they understand Mexican food perhaps in a way that they don't think they understand this other thing, or they don't, but so a lot of that stuff is just weird to me, right? But the other thing that we've noticed is just like, it's not the same playing field, right? Well, I was just joking, but it's like, you're not going to ever compare whatever 425 and Carbone to anything in Los Angeles. But maybe the point is, it's like the best things in Los Angeles should just get their own accolades for being the best things in Los Angeles, because they don't give a shit about being the other thing.
Look, yes, for sure. But I would like to see LA get the recognition that I feel that it deserves, at least from the culinary side, with, yes, the level of talent here, but also, like, let's talk about ingredient for a second. Like, we're probably the produce capital of America. If you think
we
about
are.
it. Go to our farmers markets, like, and we're pretty much year round, right? So, like, I don't know. I just feel like we probably could have more recognition.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, to me, it's like, I think people in New York spend a lot of time thinking about LA and what's good about it or ranking it or whatever. And I feel like people in LA don't even give that the time of day.
Right.
They don't really care.
LA doesn't exist to be judged by anybody else's standards.
No one will ever beat New York for fine dining. No one. Like, just the business accounts, the culture, we just don't have that. And I don't think we want that. Like, I think the food in LA never got better. It's just that the things that we do really well, ethnic, pop-up, casual, just became the way America eats. So it's less about this 4-star white tablecloth suit and tie dining experience. It's just about, that's fucking delicious. I want the best tacos from East LA. I want the best dumplings from the San Gabriel Valley. And I think people now eat that way and are it's kind of educational. You learn about it. You want to explore. You're curious about it. I think that maybe is like the rise of LA dining. It's less about because New York said we're good. Like, you know, fuck that. We don't need that. Like, I'd rather have
and it
that
is
culture
flipping.
itself.
That's well said.
And it is flipping, and it's honestly, it's flipping a little bit way too much to the other side. And Caryl, like, look, I know that you're part of the selection process for the Beard Awards last year. I mean, congratulations to people like Justin and Anajak. I'm very, very happy that deserving people like that get recognition. But there was a few years ago, right, where it was just like, okay, for years and years, Beard didn't recognize a certain thing. And then there's a year where our friend Brian Eng at Casilla became a finalist for James Beard, Best Chef California. I looked at the list, and instead of me supposedly doing the happy dance as somebody who's like part of the mayor's APILA council, I'm like, why is Bryant a finalist in a year where all 5 finalists are Asian? That's also not California, right? So there's this whole thing where now they're trying to overcorrect. And like, look, I've been talking to people at the Beard Foundation. They don't need my feedback. I've been talking about other things. But you look at some of the things that they do now, right, as overcome. There are James Beard semifinalists, right? And these are people that come to our industry-only parties. We love them to death. But I'm just going to state a couple of facts, right? Rashida Bridgetown Roti, amazing chef. She deserves everything. If she wins an award for, I think hers is just outstanding chef. If she becomes best outstanding chef, she won that in a year where either 100% of the year or maybe 90% of the year, depending on when she opens, she did not have a restaurant that was open. So that to me now is performative, right? Diego Argote, who used to, work for Ori, Diego Argote is a great chef. He's making all these pastas that people think are like, wow, this guy is crazy. But at the same time, the flavor combos are strong. But again, he has a restaurant. He has a restaurant pop-up, whatever you want to call it. Let's just say it's a restaurant inside a video arcade. That is also not a fully formed thing.
Right.
Whenever somebody wins a James Beard Award, you want them to be in the position to capitalize for it. And the thing that I worry about that kind of pisses me off now is that somebody's going to win something and they don't have a way to capitalize of it, but it's just like, hey, we gave you this award to make up for all this other stuff. You're deserving. But in reality, it's like, wait for these people to have a real restaurant, a chance for them to actually make money before you do this, because there's been so much history of Bon Appetit, Food and Wine, ordaining somebody too early.
Yeah.
Their shit wasn't ready, and they never really got to become the person. So the only thing that I'm saying about this is I think it's fine if LA doesn't get some of these accolades, because I want these people to grow into the people that they are going to be, that they deserve to be, that they will be, because they are all going to crush. But giving them some shit before they're ready, you think it helps. It does not help. There's a history of it not helping.
Well, the struggle I had last year was we had these categories. So the category is California. So
Yeah.
there's no other parameters put on it. It doesn't matter.
So we're
if
talking
you're-
about James Beard right now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Could be a truck. Could be a pop-up. Could be a brick and mortar. And I think I was like
Right, so-
struggling with how do you rank or rate
Right,
or
single
score?
thread versus the stall, right?
Yeah.
Those things should probably be in different categories. Let's be real
Yeah.
about it.
No, how do you compare a $250 taco with a $395 per person tasting menu?
The answer is you don't.
You don't. And,
Yeah.
New York Times says that 25 and under.
Yeah.
I feel like there's some, I'm glad it's not my problem to fix, but I feel like there's some version of that where it's like there's, you have to
But
break
it's the
out these
ongoing
categories.
conversation in LA where LA doesn't care, right? Is Providence a better restaurant than Mariscos Jalisco's? They're just different, right?
Apples and oranges, you can't
Right?
compare, right? Like,
They're
it's-
different.
And
Is
by the way,
Sonoratown
both-
better than Melise? They're different, you
and
know?
respected for their execution, regardless, like how they do, how they perform, what they do. Like you respect them for what they are.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
But
and
the
that-
great
that's-
part of LA is just that there are a lot of people who don't care about Providence and Melise, who get to eat Sonoratown and Mariscos Jalisco and be like, I get to eat some of the greatest food in the world. And then there are people who don't go and eat this stuff and they still like, wow, LA has great fine dining. And also I can go to Spago, I can go to Mozza, I can go to Bestia. Both things can be true at the same time. And LA is a city, LA's never fucking cared.
Yeah, there's a time and place for all of that.
They don't need to reconcile that, right?
Right.
It's not like you're going to some far off borough to like go eat one specific food in New York. In LA, people used to read Jonathan Gold and they'd be like, this restaurant is 42 miles away from where I live. It's Saturday morning. I'm going to get up. I'm going to fucking drive, And that's what LA is.
Right. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about all right, so here we are, we're kind of like you did your stint, you did New York, like what are you excited about right now? Like what are some of the things that you're working on that you're truly, very excited about that you want to share with us?
So Pizza City Festival coming back this April.
And this is the second year. Second year,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah,
And
we
the
were
first
there
year,
last year.
we were there the first year and it was absolutely great. And the turnout was incredible.
Sold out
Did
both
you get
days.
invited back?
Well, I just invited myself.
invited to
I wasn't, but I just invited myself.
You're always invited, Dom, in perpetuity to anything I do.
All right, I definitely want that in writing,
If it's a sushi festival, you're invited. No, that's it. So it'll be fun. 22 pizzerias, 2 days, different ones, I should say. Just the best of Southern California, mostly LA area, but as far north as Santa Barbara and far south as San Diego.
Wow.
So that'll be fun.
And when is that taking place?
End of April.
Where?
At LA Live.
Wow.
Get your tickets now.
Can't wait.
And then I'm doing a fun festival in Hawaii on the Big Island at the Mauna Resort. That's kind of like
Your invite's coming as
You're
well,
invited
don't
to
worry.
that. Come make some
My bags are packed, oddly enough. I was just waiting for the invite.
Exactly.
What's going on there?
So we also a second year festival. Chefs like Nancy Silverton, Jonathan Waxman, Andrew Zimmer.
Wow.
I've
heard of all three of those, by the way.
And then some local chefs. Alan Hess, Bruce Bromberg from Blue Ribbon Sushi, ironically, lives in Hawaii, so he counts as a local chef now.
Right.
But so the original festival started because it was the 30th anniversary of Blue Ribbon Sushi, or Blue Ribbon, I should say. And so they brought their whole team over and did this incredible like omakase sushi dinner, and then they did a whole tuna. I mean, it's crazy. So that's coming back.
When is that
It's
happening?
Labor Day weekend, so end of August, beginning
wow.
of September.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome.
That one's also going on sale soon. And then, yeah, lots of things.
That's awesome. That's so much fun. That sounds great. So why don't we, are we going to do anything in Vegas? What are we doing?
I mean, the thing is, it's like whenever Caryl shows up, we can always just do an extra pop-up. Oh, and you're now working with our friends at Hannah Lee Communications too, right? Tell us a little bit about. So Hannah, if you don't know, is probably the premier. I mean, she reps a lot of important restaurants too, but in terms of like the beverage world, the cocktail world, she's just a legend. She reps the world's 50 best bars.
Oh wow!
Announcement every single year. You know, in New York, she has Sip and Guzzle, Shinji, Jimmy, Portrait Bar. So she's really just doing this. But Caryl, Hannah needed some help on the West Coast, so Carol's that person now.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mentioned that, working with them. Be doing events and things out here with them. And then also, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. We want to put together.
Every podcast.
This is so insider.
Okay, don't tell anybody.
Info.
But we want to put together the first ever New York Bartender Week. So it would be in New York City in October, looking at celebrating just the best spirits, cocktails, bartenders, just that whole industry, shining a light on them.
That's so clever. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, we all can relate
Because
to our
after all
favorite
these festivals,
bartender.
I'm going to need a drink.
Yeah. Well said. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that really is, perfect segue for the last question. I mean, a lot of people do things like this for a living, and they don't also want to do it in their spare time. Why do you want to throw dinner parties when you just throw dinner parties for a living?
I think because I'm not the one on the line cooking. So for
Right.
me, I do enjoy both avocation and your vocation, right? So it's like, for me, it's just fun to do it on a personal level. I think the spirit of industry only is chefs cooking for chefs, right? So I think part of these potlucks and these dinner parties at our home is just like, it's just lovely to watch people being taken care of who usually are taking care of everybody else.
Yeah, that's
So
what's great
if you
about
come,
all the-
Dom, you're not cooking. We're cooking for you.
Wait. Can we,
Hold on. Is that an invite?
Yes.
wait,
Oh,
wait.
man,
Can we
I'm
talk
so
about the
excited.
terms of how Dom's getting invited?
Oh
to
yeah,
this?
but you have to bring a wheel of parm and an entire mortadella, and then you're done.
Deal.
No. So just so you know, you're not cooking. You're making Ben cook. You're
Yeah.
making
Okay.
Hillary
Oh,
cook.
yeah.
All the people in there making posture cooking because that's
I'm not
all
allowed
the-
to cook. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you want something good, don't have me cook. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. That sounds like so much fun. I mean, listen, the fact that I'm invited, I'm elated. I'm a little bit speechless right now, but yeah, I'll circle back to me in a little bit, and I'll.
Stop.
All right. Well, I mean, look, this is the industry only at the Cheese Store podcast. We should probably eat some cheese and charcuterie
I
now.
feel like we should.
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking about different
Oh,
parties.
by
and
the
diff-
way,
yeah.
should we have a little sip of beer?
It's
Yeah.
beer.
Andy, tell us a little bit about this beer. I never heard of it before.
Well, I mean, Big Noise is the official beer of industry only. They were one of our early sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that we like about this beer is just that our friends who like serve big, bold food, at restaurants like Jitlada and Domestic Barbecue, they just like this beer because it pairs well with LA food. And LA food,
Amen.
again, is not that New York fine dining food.
And
It's like,
Cheers.
Thank you very much for making the time to be with us.
Of course,
Seriously.
always happy.
Salud, guys.